So, when you're really talking about mentors, how did you land up advertising? Because you're a legendary direct marketer in India. You've done some great careers. In Ogilvy, you had a fantastic career. And how did you land up in an advertising job?
I My first job was with Crompton Greaves in their sales division, selling lighting fittings and all that. And the job was in Pune. Okay, I had a princely salary of 450 rupees per month, and that the first time I was going to live outside my home. My father said, "Excellent job, opportunity to learn. Most important lesson is that you have to be able to live within your means. Don't expect me to send money." Lesson number one. Okay, 450 rupees. It was really touch and go. Beginning of the month, we used to go to five-star restaurants. Second, we will go to Udupi. Last week, with the tea and biscuits, glucose biscuits. That's the kind of life I led. Okay, desperate life, but it's all right. I learned a lot. I learned a lot because I had to be on the field. I dealt with dealers, and then I was given the responsibility to deal with corporate customers. I was selling lighting fittings and lamps and all that kind of thing. I think about DGSND orders or government orders. You see the kind of thing. So huge lessons. Then after a while, I said, "This 450 rupees is nothing here. What's the point?" Then I saw an ad by Frank Simois Advertising asking for management trainings. So I applied. And I didn't know anything about advertising, but stipend was 1500 rupees a month. That was thrice my salary. I said, plus I will stay at home, no cost. So I applied and I got the job with Frank Simois. The only reason why Frank Simois took me on is because of my BSc degree, right? He was having an account, Siemens account, which is full of technical stuff. And none of his people understood any of this. They won't know the difference between ohms and watts and amperes and all that kind of stuff. And because of physics, I knew all this. And the engineers were a strange lot by themselves, very meticulous guys, German guys. So I come back to the office, right? And then I put my cab fare, and the accountant says, "What did you do?" "I went to Siemens for a meeting." "What was the job?" "This was it." "Was it approved?" "Not approved." "Why?" "Because I made a mistake." "Then why should I pay you a taxi fare?" Right? So that was one. And then Frank Simoes had encouraged me to read a lot of books. So he had given me a whole lot of names: David Ogilvy, Bill Bernbach, all sorts of things. Then my brother sent me all the books from US. So I was one of the few people who read all the books. So these were my early lessons. So then I joined Ogilvy, and the best mentor of the world, Mr. Ayer, Mani Ayer. Okay. Now, it's a story in terms of how I got the job. Okay. Now, one of the Reader's Digest guys told me when I was in Frank's, saying, "You're wasting your time here. All said and done, it's a private company here. You can't grow much, and you should go elsewhere." So he said, "Mr. Ayer has just come from Australia. He's taking over Ogilvy. Why don't you apply to him?" Right. That's all I knew. Then I said, "Tell me a little more about this guy." Now, this is the important point. I said, "Tell me a little more about this guy." I mean, I don't know why I asked him that, but intuitively asked. He said, "He's a meticulous man eye for detail, rigorous in his thinking, brilliant strategic thinker, this, that, and all that kind." So I said, "How do I make the best out of this?" Right? So I spoke to Mr. Ayer and I said, "I would like to come and see you, sir." He said, "Not now." I put the phone down. Then what I did was I prepared a dossier on myself, like a police dossier. Okay? Everything that you would want to know about the candidate in an interview, I anticipated all his questions, answered all his questions, and put in a dossier. Right? And finally, I got an appointment from him to see him on a particular date at 9 a.m. because office starts at 9:30. He lands up at 8:30, and he asked me to see him at 9 a.m. Previous evening, I went and handed over my dossier, sealed envelope, confidential mark, and I knew that he leaves the office at about 6:30. I was waiting. I saw him get into the car. Then I rushed into the office and went to his secretary. She was cleaning the desk before. I said, Mr. Ayer is expecting this. She said, thank you very much, and she kept it. She didn't open it. Then I ran away. Okay. Next day morning, I landed for the interview. Right now, all the papers go to him for study in the night. He had read everything before he came. Next morning, I went to his office. He used to have a round table. So as I went in, he said, just sit there for a minute, I'll be back. And his was his job, his routine was to go around the office once to check all the tables where confidential papers are they floating around. Then he will catch the guy and all that kind of stuff. At that time, I saw my dossier lying on table. I sort of leaned forward and said, and right at top of corner, there was a small tick mark. Then I knew it was on. Okay. Then, when he came to the room, he said, listen, let's not waste time having any kind of discussion. I have now understood enough about you. I have spoken to you about Frank. I said, you spoke to him, Frank? He said, yeah, you're working for Frank, aren't you? Frank and I are good friends. I said, what have you done? He said, don't worry. Frank thinks you're a great guy. And he also thinks it is good time for you to take a break from Frank's voice and join a bigger agency, right? So he said, I'm willing to give you a job, but I don't know when and where. I said, what do I do, Mr. Ayer? He said, you have to wait. I said, how long? I said, I don't know. So I said, do I have your permission to call you once a week to check if there is any news? He said, okay, call me every Thursday during lunchtime. Okay? I'll call up during lunchtime. I say, Mr. Ayer, Sridhar here. He said, yep. Any news, Mr. Ayer? No. So this went on for a while. Finally, he said, come and see me. Then I went. He said, listen, there is a job in Chennai. Right? Are you willing to go? I said, I'm willing to go. Because I got married. My wife is from Chennai. Right? All our relatives were in Chennai, etc. Right? We were migrants from south to this thing. I grew up in Bombay, but then Chennai, Tamil was not a problem. I studied Tamil in school, no issue at all. And he had a very difficult account in Chennai called Dollar Company, Head and Ointment. I don't know if you've heard of this. A cantankerous client, right? And he wanted somebody to go and handle that business. So he said, I'm putting you, and he didn't tell me anything, but he said, I'm putting you onto one very difficult business. If you crack it, then you made your career. So this is it. This is the way I got into Ogilvy.